Title: The Haunting of Meijer, a creepy coworker's revenge. Working at Meijer was never a dream job, but it paid the bills, and it was convenient. I was used to the mundane routine of stocking shelves, scanning items, and dealing with all sorts of customers. But one night, everything changed, and the terror that unfolded would forever be etched in my memory. My shift began like any other. I arrived at the Meijer superstore and was greeted by the familiar fluorescent lights and the faint hum of refrigeration units. My co-workers bustled around, going about their tasks, and I began restocking the shelves in the grocery section. As I reached for a pack of canned beans, I felt a chill run down my spine, as if an unwelcome presence was lurking nearby. His name was Carl, a co-worker whose unsettling behavior had been the talk of the break room for months. He always wore the same tattered uniform, and his eyes had a cold, distant look. Some said he had a troubled past, while others whispered that he had a strange obsession with the store. But I brushed off these stories as workplace gossip until that night. As I turned around, there he was, Carl, standing just a few feet away. I greeted him nervously, my unease growing with each passing second. His pale, gaunt face broke into an eerie smile, and he started speaking in a hushed, almost hypnotic tone. "Have you ever wondered, my friend," he began, "what secrets this Meijer holds when the lights go out? The stories etched in the aisles and whispered in the dark corners?" I tried to ignore him, pretending to be engrossed in my work, but Carl's presence loomed over me like a shadow. He continued to talk, each word more unsettling than the last, weaving a tale of the Meijer's dark history, a history of strange occurrences, mysterious disappearances, and something sinister lurking in the depths of the store. As he spoke, I couldn't help but be drawn into his narrative. The words filled my head like a haunting melody, and the store around us seemed to transform. The sterile ICAs now felt like a labyrinth of hidden secrets, and the flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the shelves. Carl's story culminated in a chilling revelation, a ritual to appease the ancient spirits that supposedly resided within the store's walls. He spoke of strange symbols and cryptic incantations, all meant to summon these restless entities. The more he talked, the more it felt like he was inviting me to be a part of this malevolent world, and I couldn't escape. The night wore on, and the clock seemed to move in slow motion. Carl's presence was suffocating, and I had to make a choice. Would I join him in the dark ritual, or would I try to escape his clutches? I decided that my only way out was to confront him and get help. I excused myself to the restroom, but as I walked away, I felt his gaze burning into my back. Panic surged through me as I realized that Carl was following me, the store's unnerving aura enveloping us both. I needed help, and there was only one way to reach it. I dialed 911 on my phone. As the operator answered, I heard Carl's voice growing louder and more frenzied. It was as if he had lost control, the Meijer spirits taking hold of his very being. The operator dispatched the police, and I locked myself in a stall, praying that help would arrive in time. Minutes felt like hours, and the restroom seemed to close in around me. But then the sound of sirens pierced the night, and the police arrived, breaking the trance that Carl had cast upon me. They apprehended him, his wild eyes staring at me with a mix of hatred and betrayal. The incident sent shockwaves through the Meijer community, and I discovered that Carl had indeed been obsessed with the store, seeking to unleash the spirits that he believed resided within its walls. His terrifying tale was a cautionary one, a reminder that sometimes the most chilling encounters are not with the supernatural, but with those who walk among us, our co-workers, our neighbors, and the hidden darkness that can lurk within. From that day on, I continued to work at Meijer, but the haunting presence of that night still lingers in my memory. I've learned that even in the most ordinary places, there can be shadows waiting to reveal their sinister secrets, and it's a lesson I'll never forget. Title: A Night to Remember. I had worked at Meijer for several years, and the stories of strange occurrences during the night shift were the stuff of legend among the employees. But nothing could have prepared me for the chilling encounter I would have one fateful night, involving a relentless shoplifter. It was the dead of winter, and the sky outside was a pitch-black abyss. The store's fluorescent lights bathed the aisles in a sterile glow as I arranged products on the shelves in the electronics department. There was an uncanny silence, broken only by the hum of the refrigeration units. As I mindlessly worked, my ears perked up at the sound of muffled voices. I strained to listen, my senses on high alert. It was the whispering of two people, and I could sense the urgency in their tone. Against better judgment, I decided to investigate. I crept down the shadowy aisles, closer to the source of the voices. As I drew near, I could make out hushed words spoken in low, conspiratorial tones. There, in the video game section, I saw them. A pair of shoplifters, furtively stuffing game consoles into bags. They were so focused on their illicit mission that they hadn't noticed me. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I knew I had to do something. I was trained to report shoplifters, but this situation felt different, ominous even. I decided to confront them quietly, hoping to defuse the situation without causing a scene. I approached the duo, my heart pounding. Before I could speak, one of the shoplifters looked up, their eyes locking onto mine. They had an unnerving intensity about them, and their lips curled into a malevolent smile. The whispering continued, but now it seemed more like an incantation, a dark ritual. Suddenly, the video game shelves began to shake, as if an unseen force was at work. I stumbled back, terrified, as the shoplifters, seemingly unperturbed by the phenomenon, reached for more loot. Their voices rose, the whispered words growing louder, and the eerie flickering of the overhead lights intensified. It was as if they were invoking something from the other world. Panic surged through me, and I realized I had to escape. I turned and fled, my footsteps echoing through the empty aisles as I ran toward the front of the store. I reached the security office and frantically dialed the police, explaining the bizarre events that were unfolding. They promised to send help. As I glanced at the surveillance cameras, I saw the shoplifters emerging from the electronics department, their bags bulging with stolen goods. But there was something different about them now. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, and they moved as if possessed. The police arrived just in time, surrounding the shoplifters, who seemed dazed and disoriented. As they were apprehended, one of the officers told me that they had been attempting to perform a ritual believed to grant them power and protection. It was a dangerous, supernatural endeavor, and it had spiraled out of control. The store returned to its usual calm, and the shoplifters were taken away. But that night, the memory of their eerie ritual haunted me. Meijer, it seemed, held secrets beyond what any of us could fathom. And I couldn't help but wonder what other dark mysteries might be concealed within its walls. Title: The Midnight Pursuer. Working the night shift at Meijer was eerie enough, but the unnerving experience I had one fateful night involved a relentless stalker who made the ordinary seem terrifying. I was assigned to the cash register at the front of the store, a seemingly straightforward task. But this night was different. The store was unusually quiet, and the atmosphere felt charged with a palpable unease. As I scanned items and exchanged pleasantries with the few late-night customers, I noticed a man who stood out from the rest. He was middle-aged, dressed in a long overcoat that seemed out of place in the chill of summer. His graying hair was disheveled, and he wore a pair of dark sunglasses, even indoors. He approached the counter, his eyes hidden behind the shades, and set a single item on the conveyor belt. It was a small, ornate box, intricately designed and adorned with strange symbols. He said nothing, only offered a subtle, unsettling smile. I rang up the box and informed him of the total. He paid in cash, the bills damp and frayed, as if they had seen better days. As I handed him the receipt, he leaned in closer, his voice a low, almost breathless whisper. The box. It's a conduit, he murmured. A gateway to another world. Keep it close, and you'll see. His words sent shivers down my spine, but I chalked it up to a bizarre customer and thought nothing more of it. The night continued, and the store gradually emptied. But as I tidied up the cash register, I couldn't help but notice the man's presence. He was there, watching from a distance, his dark glasses still hiding his eyes. It felt as if he were studying me, his gaze never wavering. As I made my way to the break room for a brief respite, I was startled to find him there, sitting in a corner, the ornate box beside him. He offered a ghostly smile and a nod as I entered, and his presence felt invasive, like an unsettling intrusion into my personal space. With growing unease, I returned to the front of the store, but the man followed, always lurking in the shadows, as if he were drawn to me. The late hour made it impossible to seek assistance from others, and the eerie situation left me feeling trapped. The climax of the night came when I found myself alone with the man at the cash register. He leaned in even closer, his voice barely a whisper. "Open the box," he urged, his breath cold against my ear. "Open it, and you'll see the truth." Terrified, I refused and backed away, fearing what might happen if I complied. The man's demeanor grew increasingly desperate, and he reached for the box himself, revealing its strange contents. Inside was a swirling, pitch-black void, a portal to an abyss that seemed to devour the surrounding light. As the man's hand touched the void, he was pulled inside, disappearing with a haunting scream that sent a chill down my spine. The box snapped shut, and I was left in stunned silence, alone with the chilling aftermath of a nightmarish encounter. The authorities arrived later to investigate, but the man was never found, and the mysterious box was gone, as if it had never existed. I left Meijer that night, forever haunted by the inexplicable stalker and the unsettling encounter that defied all rational explanation. Title: The Midnight Shift. I had always thought that working the night shift at Meijer would be a piece of cake. Just a few hours of stocking shelves, a little peace and quiet, and a paycheck. That's what I had believed, until I started to notice the strange occurrences. It was a Tuesday night, and I was assigned to the grocery section. The dimly lit aisles seemed endless, the silence broken only by the hum of the overhead lights and the creaking of the floor. Meijer was eerily empty, the occasional late-night shopper a rare sight. My co-worker, Mark, had always given me an odd feeling. He was tall and lanky, with a perpetual grin that never seemed to reach his eyes. Whenever I passed him in the aisles, he would glance my way, and a shiver would run down my spine. But it wasn't until that fateful night that I discovered the true extent of Mark's malevolence. As I was restocking cereal boxes, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. Mark was acting strangely, moving swiftly between the shelves, constantly checking his surroundings. I pretended not to notice, chalking it up to his usual odd behavior. But when I turned around, I saw him slip something into his pocket with a mischievous grin. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to follow him. He led me to the back of the store, to a dimly lit storage room. As I approached, I heard him muttering to himself, and the words sent chills down my spine. "It's the perfect time. No one will notice." I had to know what he was up to. I peered through the cracked door, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Mark was pulling food items off the shelves, shoving them into his backpack. It wasn't just a snack for later. He was stealing, and it was clear he had been doing it for a while. Suddenly, Mark turned, his eyes locking onto mine. He knew he was caught, and that sinister grin returned to his face. "What's it to you, huh?" he sneered. I didn't know what to say. The situation was escalating far beyond what I had anticipated. I decided to call the manager, hoping Mark's thieving would finally be exposed. But as I reached for my phone, the lights in the storage room flickered, plunging the room into darkness. I could hear Mark's laughter echoing through the blackness, growing louder and more menacing with every second. The lights came back on and Mark was gone. So was his backpack filled with stolen goods. I knew I had to tell the manager about the theft, but how could I explain what I had seen? Would anyone believe me? As I stumbled out of the storage room, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark had known something I didn't, something darker and more sinister than mere theft. The night continued, but I was haunted by the encounter. Mark had left a trail of paranoia in his wake, and I couldn't help but feel that he was more than just a petty thief. As I finished my shift, I couldn't shake the feeling that Meijer held secrets far more sinister than the shelves of stolen groceries. That night marked the beginning of a mystery I couldn't ignore, and I was determined to uncover the truth hidden within the aisles of Meijer, no matter how terrifying it might be.